The Fire of Redemption Ministry. The crowd was small, barely 20 people. Yet there was something magnetic about the young man standing before them. He wore a plain white shirt and black trousers. His skin glowed with health, his eyes deep and unsettlingly calm. His name was Prophet Desmond. Nobody knew exactly where he came from. Some said he had served under a big church in Enugu. Others whispered that he was trained by angels in the wilderness. What everyone agreed upon was that he had the gift. Sick people claimed to walk after his prayers. Those who were barren swore they felt life stirring in their wombs after a touch of his hand. Even the skeptical began to wonder. Welcome to Spiritual African Stories, the home of captivating African folktales, supernatural mysteries, and deeply emotional stories inspired by the heart of our culture. Here, every tale carries a spirit, stories of love, betrayal, power, and redemption that connect the physical and the spiritual worlds. Before we begin, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that will move your soul and stir your imagination. Among the crowd that morning stood Chike and Nneka, a soft-spoken woman in her late 20s. Her husband had died 2 years before, leaving her with nothing but memories and unanswered prayers. She watched Desmond raise his hands to the sky, and something in his presence, his calm authority, his voice like honey over fire, made her chest tighten with hope. "Lift your eyes," Desmond said softly, his accent smooth, carrying a rhythm that felt almost otherworldly. "For the Lord himself walks among us today. There is someone here whose tears have been your only prayer. Come forward." Chike and Nneka froze. Somehow she knew he was speaking to her. The people turned. She stepped forward, trembling, clutching her scarf. Desmond smiled, and for a fleeting second, it was as though time stopped. His eyes, deep, dark, and glowing with something too powerful to be human, met hers. He touched her forehead. She fell. The crowd gasped as her body convulsed, and Desmond began to pray in a language no one understood, a low, melodic chant that sounded older than the earth itself. Then silence. When Chike and Nneka finally opened her eyes, she felt light, as if the burden she had carried for years had melted away. She didn't know that behind her miracle, something unseen had been watching, something that moved like smoke through the cracks of the church floor, whispering in a tongue only Desmond could hear. That night, Ikeja slept beneath heavy clouds. In a small rented room behind the church, Desmond knelt beside a flickering candle. The same white shirt he had worn for the service was now soaked in sweat. Before him lay an open Bible, but beside it, hidden beneath a folded cloth, was a small wooden bowl filled with dark water. The reflection in that bowl was not his own. A voice rose from it, soft, feminine, ancient. "You feed them with light," it whispered, "but you drink from my darkness. Have you forgotten the promise you made beneath the river?" Desmond's hand trembled. He bowed lower. "I have not forgotten, Mother of the Depths. But they believe I am an angel. Must their faith be built on blood?" The water rippled violently. "Every healing takes life. Every miracle has its price. Remember the covenant, Desmond." He slammed the cloth over the bowl, breathing hard. From outside came the faint sound of laughter, the faithful still singing after the evening fellowship. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his heart pounding against his ribs. He was the man everyone called Angel, yet in the quiet, he felt more like a prisoner than a prophet. Days turned into weeks. The crowd grew. People traveled from as far as Ibadan to see him. A barren woman gave birth after 7 years. A blind boy opened his eyes mid-sermon. The local newspaper called him the miracle of Ikeja. One afternoon, a young man approached the church compound. He wore a crisp shirt, his steps careful, his gaze suspicious. His name was Chike, a journalist and Chike and Nneka's childhood friend. He had heard of Desmond's wonders and didn't believe a word of it. As he entered, the atmosphere hit him like heat. The place buzzed with energy, a mix of sweat, incense, and faith. People shouted prayers, hands raised, tears streaming. Desmond stood on the small stage, his voice commanding. "You shall not die. You shall live to testify." Every word felt like thunder. Yet, as Chike lifted his camera, the lens fogged, a thin veil of mist swirling before the image could focus. He frowned, lowering it. For a moment, he thought he saw something, a faint shadow hovering behind Desmond. Something tall, thin, and winged. But when he blinked, it was gone. After the service, Chike met Nneka outside. "You trust him?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "With my life," she said simply. "Be careful," he warned. "I've seen men who claim to be angels before. They all bleed red like the rest of us." That night, Desmond couldn't sleep. His dreams were full of water, endless, black, whispering his name. He woke with a scream, drenched in cold sweat. The candle had burned down to a stub. Something moved in the corner of the room. A shape, human but not. "You promised me 7 souls." The voice said, "Neither male nor female. You have given 3. Desmond grabbed the Bible, pressing it to his chest. "I serve God," he shouted. "Leave me." The shadow laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You serve whoever answers first, prophet." And I answered before he did. Then the shadow dissolved into the walls. Desmond fell to his knees, weeping. He remembered that night years ago, by the river in his village. The night the goddess came to him. The night he asked for power to heal, and promised whatever it took in return. He had thought he was chosen. Now he knew he was chained. Sunday came again. The church overflowed. The air trembled with music and tears. Desmond stood before them all, calm, radiant, the perfect image of divine power. Only Chike, standing at the back with his camera, noticed the faint crimson glow beneath Desmond's feet when he prayed. The journalist's curiosity turned to fear. He decided he would find out the truth, no matter what it cost. That evening, the sky turned a bruised purple as thunder rolled over Ikeja. Chike hid behind the church, watching Desmond lock up after the service. The prophet moved strangely, cautious, as if listening to unseen voices. When the last member left, he turned off the lights, then disappeared inside his quarters. Chike crept closer. Through the window, he saw Desmond kneeling again, this time before that same wooden bowl. The journalist raised his camera, recording through the glass. Suddenly, the room filled with light, not white, but red, pulsing like a heartbeat. Desmond's face twisted in agony as he muttered a chant. The water in the bowl began to rise, forming the faint shape of a woman's face. Chike's hands shook. The figure in the water opened its eyes and looked directly at him. The window shattered. Chike stumbled backward, clutching his camera, gasping. A chill wind swept through the night. He ran, didn't stop until he reached the main road, breathless, heart hammering. When he checked the footage, the screen showed nothing but static. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. By morning, news spread again, another miracle. A woman, paralyzed for years, had stood up and walked after Desmond's prayer. The world celebrated. But in a small dark corner of the church, a stray cat lay dead, its eyes wide open, its body drained of blood. Desmond saw it and knew. The goddess had taken her price. He turned away, hiding the tremor in his hands as the crowd cheered his name outside. Prophet Desmond. Man of God. Angel sent from heaven. He smiled weakly. Inside, he heard the voice whisper again. Angel by day, my agent by night. He whispered back, almost inaudibly. How long before my day ends? The next dawn came with rain, the kind that fell softly, as though heaven wept in secret. Water traced thin veins down the cracked walls of the fire of redemption ministry, hissing against the iron roof. Inside, candles burned low, their flames trembling in the draft. Prophet Desmond sat alone before the altar. His white shirt clung damp to his skin. He hadn't slept since the last service. The laughter of the crowd still echoed in his ears, and beneath it, the whisper, Angel by day, my agent by night. He pressed his palms together. If you hear me, Lord, he murmured, deliver me from whatever owns the night. Thunder rolled as if answering, but only silence followed. The church door creaked open. Nneka entered, shielding herself with a blue umbrella. Her eyes carried the soft fatigue of someone who had seen too many miracles and still could not believe any of them. Prophet, she said gently, people wait outside. They say you prayed, and the heavens opened. They want more. Desmond looked up, his gaze distant. More? They always want more. Is that not faith? She asked. He smiled faintly, a tired, broken smile. Faith, yes. But sometimes, what we call faith is only hunger wearing holy clothes. Nneka hesitated, sensing the heaviness in his voice. You should rest. Even the strongest prophets must sleep. He nodded but didn't move. As she turned to leave, he whispered, Stay a little. Your presence quiets the noise. For a moment, their eyes met, not as prophet and follower, but as two lonely souls standing before the same storm. That night, the rain stopped, but the air thickened with heat. The moon hid behind clouds, and the streets of Ikeja sank into restless silence. Desmond dreamed again. The same river, dark and endless. The goddess rose from its depths, her hair like flowing smoke. Her voice was velvet and iron at once. The covenant bleeds, my child. One must fall so others may rise. No, he whispered. No more. Then your gift will rot. Choose. He woke with a start, heart racing. The candle beside his bed flickered wildly though there was no wind. He rose, stumbling toward the small mirror nailed to the wall. His reflection smiled at him, but he wasn't smiling. He smashed the mirror. The following Sunday, the church overflowed beyond the gate. The sick came on crutches, the blind guided by relatives, mothers carrying photos of sons lost to addiction. Among them was a boy named Peter, barely 12, frail and coughing blood. His mother wept as she pushed him forward. Desmond's hands trembled as he looked at the child. He felt it, the same invisible pull, the same whisper curling around his thoughts. Heal him, and the balance will take what it desires. He wanted to run, but the eyes of hundreds were upon him, eyes filled with desperation, with faith so heavy it pinned him in place. He placed his palm gently on Peter's head. The crowd hushed. Be healed, he said. A warmth surged through his arm, bright and cold at once. Peter gasped, then coughed, once, twice, and suddenly stood straight. The mother screamed with joy. The crowd erupted. Desmond staggered backward, clutching his chest. A sharp pain pierced his heart. He looked toward the far end of the hall and saw the faint outline of the shadow watching, nodding slowly, satisfied. Later that night, Desmond returned to his room. The bowl of dark water waited, perfectly still. He didn't uncover it. He didn't need to. The air already carried the scent of the river, wet, ancient, possessive. He sank to his knees. What did you take this time? He whispered. No answer came. Only the soft drip of rain through a hole in the roof. Moments later, a knock sounded on the door. It was Chike. Desmond hesitated, then opened it. The journalist's eyes were red, his hands shaking. Prophet, he said hoarsely, the boy you healed, he's alive. Yes, but his father died tonight. Heart failure. Same hour, same minute. Desmond's breath caught. The room tilted. Do you think that's a coincidence? Chike demanded. I've seen your shadows. I saw the light beneath your feet. What are you? Desmond sank into the chair, face pale. I wanted to save lives, he whispered. But every life saved costs another. It is not me who chooses. Chike stared at him, horror slowly turning into pity. Then stop. Close this place before more die. Desmond shook his head. If I stop, they will come for me instead. He lifted his eyes. They glistened with a strange, weary glow. You think I'm free, Chike? I am chained by the same hope that brings them here. Chike left without another word. The prophet watched him disappear into the rain. Hours later, the city slept again. Desmond knelt before the altar, the church lit only by moonlight through cracked windows. He began to pray, his voice shaking. If you are still with me, Lord, break this chain. Let me be yours again. A wind swept through the church, extinguishing every candle. The darkness thickened, pulsing. From within it came that familiar whisper, low and tender. There is no breaking what was never bound by chains. You called me. You begged me. I answered. Desmond covered his ears. Leave me. You wear my power like light wears the dawn. The voice cooed. Did you think miracles bloom without roots and shadow? The wooden cross above the altar trembled, casting a long, crooked shadow across his face. He bowed his head, defeated. Then let the darkness take me, but not them. A pause, then a soft laugh. We shall see. Morning. Chike and Nneka arrived early, carrying a tray of food. She found Desmond asleep by the altar, pale, his Bible open on his chest. She placed the tray quietly beside him and turned to leave, when something caught her eye. The mirror above the pulpit, cracked from edge to edge, showed not one reflection, but two. Desmond kneeling, and behind him, a tall dark silhouette with hands resting gently on his shoulders. Chike and Nneka blinked, and it was gone. That evening, Chike returned once more, drawn by something he couldn't explain. The air around the church felt heavier, charged with unseen energy. He found Desmond outside, gazing at the sky. "You still preach tomorrow?" Chike asked. "Yes." "After what happened?" Desmond turned slowly, eyes tired yet serene. "If I do not stand before them, the night will." Chike studied him, realizing perhaps for the first time that Desmond was both victim and vessel, a man torn between salvation and curse. The next day's service overflowed beyond imagination. People filled the streets, chanting, dancing, singing of miracles. Reporters came. Cameras rolled. Desmond stepped onto the stage. His voice carried over the crowd, calm and commanding. "We seek light," he said, "but we must learn what our shadows mean." No one understood. They cheered anyway. He raised his hands. The wind stilled. The sky dimmed as clouds gathered unnaturally fast. A ripple of unease passed through the crowd. Chike and Nneka clutched her chest. Chike lifted his camera once more. Then, silence. A single candle at the altar flared, though no one had lit it. Its flame burned deep red. Desmond lowered his hands. His eyes met Chike's through the sea of people. For a heartbeat, he looked at peace. And then the candle went out. When light returned, Desmond was gone. The crowd erupted in panic, searching every corner, calling his name. But all that remained on the altar was his white shirt, folded neatly beside the open Bible, and the faint scent of river water in the air. Outside, the rain began again. Chike and Nneka fell to her knees, tears mixing with the downpour. Chike stood frozen, the camera hanging limp in his hands. He would later swear that through the thunder he heard a whisper, soft as breath. Angel by day, agent of darkness by night. The morning after Desmond's mysterious disappearance, Ikeja woke beneath a sky that felt too heavy for daylight. Clouds hung low, pressing against the roofs of corrugated houses. The air was thick with the smell of rain and suspicion. People spoke in whispers outside the gates of House of Grace Revival Church, the place once filled with music and miracles. Now, the great bronze doors were chained shut. Among the silent crowd stood Chike and Nneka, a quiet man in his mid-30s, lean and thoughtful. He had been Desmond's trusted assistant, the one who arranged the prayer lines, managed the crusades, and carried the prophet's Bible. Yet Chike's eyes, always bright with faith, were now restless. He stared at the locked doors as though they were hiding a voice calling to him. Rumors had spread overnight. Some said Desmond had ascended to heaven. Others claimed he had run away after the spirit that empowered him demanded something terrible. But Chike knew Desmond too well. He remembered the tremor in his mentor's voice the last night they spoke, the half-finished sentence. "If anything happens, don't open the room beneath the altar." Chike had tried to forget those words, but they echoed louder with each passing hour. That afternoon, he received a message. A plain envelope slipped under his apartment door. Inside lay a small brass key and a folded note written in Desmond's hand. "The truth is in the house. The light you see is not the light you think. Forgive me." Chike's heart pounded. He knew what the house meant. Desmond's private prayer villa at the edge of Ikeja, a white building surrounded by palm trees and quiet walls. It was the prophet's sanctuary, a place only he entered. As thunder rumbled over Lagos, Chike set out for the villa. The road to the compound was narrow, lined with jacaranda trees. Their purple blossoms had fallen like scattered tears along the path. Chike's footsteps echoed. He reached the tall iron gate, slid the key into the lock, and felt a shiver when it turned with a soft click. Inside, the air was unnaturally still. No birds sang. The villa seemed to breathe, a faint hum beneath its silence. Paintings of angels lined the hallway, but in the flickering light from the storm outside, their faces seemed to change expression, gentle smiles becoming watchful stares. "Pastor," Chike called. His voice vanished into the corridors. He moved through the rooms, each one immaculate, scented faintly with incense. The living room was arranged as if Desmond might return at any moment. Bible on the table, a cup half filled with water beside it. Yet a thin layer of dust coated everything. Time itself felt frozen. At last, Chike came to the prayer chamber. A wooden cross hung above the altar, flanked by candles burned down to stubs. Beneath the floor rug, something caught his eye, a small brass ring. He pulled at it, and a hidden panel lifted with a faint groan of hinges. Beneath lay a staircase descending into darkness. Desmond's words returned. Don't open the room beneath the altar. Chike hesitated, the storm cracking outside. Then he took his phone, turned on its flashlight, and began to descend. The air grew colder as he went down. The walls, once marble, turned to rough cement, damp and veined with roots. The stairs ended before a heavy wooden door carved with strange, circular patterns, two rings overlapping like suns and moons locked in embrace. He pushed it open. The room beyond was small, lit only by a single oil lamp burning blue. At its center stood two altars. One was made of white stone, carved with crosses and verses in gold. The altar Chike recognized from Desmond's crusades. But beside it stood another, older one of dark basalt, engraved with symbols Chike had never seen. Upon it rested a silver bowl filled with ash and something that glowed faintly red beneath the smoke. The air vibrated, almost humming. Chike stepped closer, his flashlight shaking. He noticed that the two altars were connected by a thin chain of copper wire, as though binding them together. A single candle burned between them, its flames shifting colors, blue, then crimson, then gold. Suddenly, a faint whisper filled the chamber. You should not have come. Chike spun around. No one stood there. The whisper came from nowhere and everywhere. The flame trembled. He backed away, clutching his chest. Who's there? He called. The light from his phone dimmed. For an instant, he thought he saw a figure standing between the altars, a silhouette shaped like Desmond, but its shadow stretched the wrong way. Master. The shape tilted its head, voice soft as wind through reeds. The light you see is not the light you think. The same words from the letter. Then the flame went out. Chike stumbled back, gasping. His phone flickered and went dead. In the pitch darkness, he felt something warm at his feet, a pulse through the ground, as if the earth itself breathed. Then, from the shadows, a low hum began to rise, a chorus of unseen voices chanting a name he could not understand. He fled. When he burst into the open air, the storm had passed. The moon hung pale and swollen, and the compound's trees swayed though no wind blew. Chike fell to his knees, panting, staring at the villa that now seemed alive. Every window glowed faintly with a strange internal light. He did not remember leaving the gate open, yet it now stood wide as if inviting the night inside. His phone flickered back to life. The screen displayed an unread message from an unknown number. The text read, "The second altar must not wake." He looked around. The street was empty. Only the whisper of leaves replied. That night, Chike could not sleep. The scent of ash clung to his clothes. When he closed his eyes, he saw the two altars again, the chain that linked them, the flame that refused to die. He decided to seek Nneka, Desmond's elder sister, who had long warned him about her brother's mysterious rise. Nneka lived in an old apartment near Computer Village, a place filled with incense, framed scriptures, and jars of herbs. She was a tall woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that seemed to read souls. When Chike told her everything, she listened silently, her fingers clasped around a rosary. When he finished, she said quietly, "I begged Desmond to destroy that room years ago, but he said he could not, because his power lived there." "What kind of power?" Chike asked. "The kind that bargains," she replied. He was once a true servant of God. But one night, he met a stranger, someone who offered him more light for his miracles. He thought he could use darkness to serve the light. But darkness never shares. Chike swallowed. What happens if the second altar wakes? Nneka looked toward her window where the sky had begun to flash again with distant lightning. Then the light will turn on those who follow it, and Ikeja will not know whether it's blessed or cursed. She rose and opened an old wooden box, taking out a weathered diary bound in leather. This was Desmond's. He left it here before he built that house. Inside were handwritten notes, sermons, prayers, and pages filled with sketches of the two altars. Beneath one drawing was written a line that chilled Chike's blood. The sacrifice of light is not blood but obedience. Yet obedience may cost everything. Nneka closed the diary. If you want answers, go to the hill behind the villa. That is where he first heard the voice. By evening, Chike found himself climbing that hill, a low rise covered with wild grass and scattered stones. The city lights glimmered below like fallen stars. The wind carried the scent of rain and iron. At the top stood an ancient tree with roots so wide they formed a small cave beneath them. The ground around it was scorched, as if lightning had struck many times. Chike felt drawn to the hollow and knelt, tracing a mark carved into the trunk, the same overlapping rings from the altar door. "Desmond, what did you do here?" he whispered. The wind answered with a sigh that almost sounded human. He placed his hand against the carving. A sudden warmth spread through his palm, and a faint image flashed across his mind. Desmond kneeling in the same spot, speaking to someone unseen, his face half in light, half in shadow. Then came a voice, Desmond's voice, but not from the present. It was like hearing a memory made of air. Every miracle has two prices. One is seen, the other is hidden. Chike jerked his hand away. The warmth vanished. The hill was silent again. He looked back, toward the villa. Its windows were still glowing faintly, though no lights burned inside. Somewhere deep within, he thought he heard the echo of chains shifting. As he walked back down, his phone rang. It was Ruth, the church's lead chorister. Her voice trembled. "Brother Chike, come quickly. People are gathering at the church again. They say Pastor Desmond has returned." Chike froze. "That's impossible." "I'm telling you. I saw him," Ruth insisted. "He's standing before the gates, praying for the sick." The line crackled and went dead. Chike broke into a run, the night swallowing him. When Chike reached House of Grace Revival Church, it was past midnight. Yet the entire street glowed. Headlights from parked cars threw harsh beams across the crowd. Men and women knelt on the wet pavement, hands raised toward the gate. From somewhere inside came the sound of prayer, low, steady, powerful. Ruth was right. A man stood at the chained doors, back to the crowd, head bowed. The flicker from nearby street lamps caught his white robe, the same kind Pastor Desmond always wore. Each word of his prayer sent ripples through the air, like wind brushing a curtain. "Desmond," Chike whispered, stepping forward. People turned as if recognizing him. "Brother Chike," someone shouted. "Our prophet has returned. The man of God is back." Chike pushed through them, heart pounding. But when the man lifted his head, the face, though almost Desmond's, seemed off. The eyes burned too bright. The smile was too still. "Pastor." The figure turned fully. "You should be glad, my son," it said softly, voice echoing as if from somewhere distant. "The light never dies." The chains on the gates rattled. The locks snapped open on their own. The doors swung inward. The crowd gasped and fell to their knees. Chike stepped back, whispering a prayer under his breath. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. The prophet entered the church. Candles inside ignited one by one, though no flame touched them. The entire sanctuary glowed gold. The man raised his arms. "The Lord is here," he said. Chike felt a rush of warmth sweep through him, but behind it, a cold so deep it numbed his spine. He turned to Ruth, who stood trembling beside him. "That's not Pastor Desmond," he said. "But look," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "He heals again." Indeed, as the figure passed, a blind woman cried out. Her eyes opened. A cripple dropped his crutch and walked. Yet Chike saw their shadows stretch unnaturally across the walls, twisting like vines. The miracles were real, but the source wasn't. Later that night, after the crowd had dispersed in awe, Chike stayed hidden near the vestry. He watched as the man closed the church doors, kneeling before the altar. From the back of the hall, Chike could hear faint murmurs. Light for light, night for night. Then the floorboards near the pulpit trembled. A faint red glow seeped through the cracks, the same hue Chike had seen in the villa's underground room. He couldn't stay hidden any longer. "Who are you?" he demanded, stepping into the light. The figure turned. For a moment, the face flickered, Desmond's features melting into shadow and back again. "You should not have followed," the voice said, deeper now, resonant, almost metallic. "I won't leave until I know what's happening," Chike said. "Where is the real Pastor Desmond?" The figure's eyes dimmed. "He is between altars," it whispered, "bound until the choice is made." "What choice?" "The one he made the night. He asked for more power than light could give." Lightning flashed outside, striking close enough to shake the building. When Chike looked again, the figure was gone. Only the scent of incense and burnt air remained. At dawn, Nneka found Chike sitting on the church steps, pale and silent. "It has begun, hasn't it?" she said. Chike nodded. "He, or something, used his face. The people believe he's back. The miracles continue. Nneka's voice broke. Then the second altar is stirring. They returned to the villa together that afternoon. The front gate creaked open by itself. Inside, the walls pulsed with faint light. The two altars below seemed alive, white and black stones now glowing side by side, the copper chain between them vibrating softly. "Do you feel that?" Chike whispered. "Yes," Nneka said. "They are feeding off the faith of the people. Every prayer spoken in his name strengthens the link." Chike stepped closer. "Then we have to break it. You can't destroy what was bound by covenant," she warned. "But you can refuse its offering." "How?" "By making another choice, the opposite one." The lights flickered. A faint hum rose from the altars, and a vision burst into Chike's mind. Desmond kneeling, tears streaming down his face as two shadows loomed over him. One spoke of glory, the other of service. He had chosen glory. Now the shadows turned toward Chike. "Choose." He stumbled backward, clutching his head. Nneka grabbed his arm. "Fight it. It feeds on fear." The glow intensified. Candles across the chamber burst into flame without smoke. The copper chain stretched, trembling. Then a loud crack echoed through the house. The white altar dimmed. The dark one flared. Nneka fell to her knees. "The second altar is waking." "Run!" Chike shouted. They fled up the stairs as a low, resonant hum followed them, like a heartbeat from beneath the earth. The villa shook. Windows shattered. Outside, clouds twisted into spirals. They reached Nneka's car. As she drove, Chike looked back. The villa now glowed from within, every window shining red and gold. A column of light shot upward, then faded into mist. "What happens now?" he asked. Nneka gripped the wheel. "When two altars awaken, they search for a vessel. One of light, one of shadow." Chike looked at his hands, still trembling. "And if they find one, then one city becomes two, one blessed, one cursed." They drove in silence. That evening, news spread across Lagos. The prophet Desmond had reappeared. Videos flooded social media, people crying, healed, testifying. The government promised to reopen the church. But those who touched him in the crowd said they felt a chill afterward, as if something unseen had brushed against their souls. Ruth called again, voice panicked. "Brother Chike, please. I think something's wrong with Pastor. He called us to pray at midnight again. But his eyes, they don't blink." Chike felt his blood run cold. "Stay away from him until I get there." He hung up and turned to Nneka. "It's spreading. The second altar is using him to gather energy. Every prayer fuels it." Nneka opened Desmond's old diary again. Inside was a single phrase written across the last page. "When the altars join, the vessel divides." "What does it mean?" Chike asked. Nneka closed the book. "It means Desmond's soul may already be split. One part calling for help, the other answering darkness." At midnight, they returned to the church. The gate stood open. A soft, golden light poured out, pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside, hundreds of people knelt, eyes closed, chanting the same phrase. Light for light, night for night. Desmond stood before them, arms outstretched, face serene. Chike stepped forward. "Pastor, listen to me. You're being used. You must stop." Desmond's eyes turned toward him. "Used?" he said gently. "No, my son. I am fulfilled. The world needed both light and darkness to see truth." "Then let the people go." "I cannot," Desmond said. "They call me back." Their faith built the bridge. The second altar awakens through them now. The air thickened. Candles flared blue. Nneka grabbed Chike's hand. "If he finishes that prayer, it will bind the two altars forever." "Then how do we stop him?" Nneka's voice shook. "By reminding him who he was, before the power." Chike shouted above the chanting. "Desmond, remember the hill. Remember the voice that called you before the light." For a heartbeat, the prophet froze. The glow around him flickered. Then his own voice changed, becoming two tones in one body, one pleading, one commanding. "I am the light. You are not." The clash of voices echoed through the hall. Candles blew out. Wind roared. The people screamed and fled. Nneka and Chike stood firm as the shadow around Desmond began to twist, pulling at him. He cried out, reaching toward them, then vanished in a burst of light, so blinding it silenced the storm outside. When the light faded, Desmond was gone. The church lay in ruins. Every candle melted into pools of wax. The altar stood untouched, the copper chain now broken. Chike fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Is it over? Nneka's expression was unreadable. No, she said quietly. When one altar sleeps, the other dreams. The balance has only shifted. Outside, sirens wailed. In the distance, the villa still glowed faintly, waiting. The wind outside the abandoned shrine had turned cold. In the flicker of their lantern, shadows danced across the cracked walls like spirits long waiting to be remembered. Chike's hand trembled as he held up the torn page he'd found inside the hidden chest. A page written in Desmond's own handwriting, dated just 2 days before the prophet's death. To break what was bound, one must face his reflection and speak truth against the shadow that answers back. Nneka leaned closer, her eyes scanning the faded ink. Reflection, could it mean a mirror? Or his conscience? She whispered. Chike looked around the narrow chamber. Maybe both, he said quietly. The covenant of 2 altars, one light, one dark. The mirror could be the bridge. The ground quivered slightly beneath them, as if something deep within the earth had heard. From the far end of the shrine, the mural they'd discovered earlier, half angel, half horned silhouette, seemed to shimmer under the lantern's glow. The symbols etched beneath it began to rearrange like dust stirred by invisible hands. The Journal of 2 Names. Nneka wiped the dust off another book from the chest. The cover was bound with thread soaked dark by age. She turned the first page and gasped. It's Desmond's journal. But look, every page after the first bears 2 signatures. Desmond Nwoko and Obiara the Seer. Who's Obiara? Chike asked. The old preacher who vanished from Ikeja 20 years ago, Nneka said slowly. The one they said went mad after seeing a living mirror. As she spoke the words, the lamp flickered violently. For a second, Chike thought he saw 2 reflections of Nneka standing side by side. One still, one moving with delay. Then it vanished. He rubbed his eyes. This place is doing something to our minds. No, Nneka said, voice steady despite her own fear. It's showing us what was hidden. They read deeper. Each entry alternated between Desmond and Obiara, 2 voices entwined like twin flames. Desmond wrote about miracles and healing. Obiara about dreams of a black mirror that answered prayers but demanded something each time. Something unspoken, something only the heart could feel. He said the voice promised me light for every dark deed I denied. It gave me power to heal, but it took away rest. When I tried to stop, the mirror called my name. The house trembles. A low hum filled the air. Nneka's lantern dimmed to a pale ember. Chike, do you hear that? He nodded, eyes darting toward the mural. The angel's painted eyes were glowing faintly gold, while the horned figure's eyes bled into a dull red light. Between them, a crack was forming, thin, vertical, like a line drawn down the middle of a mirror. Nneka stepped back. It's opening. Don't move. Chike warned, gripping the rosary around his neck. This could be what the covenant warned about. From the fracture, a whisper seeped out. Neither male nor female, neither loud nor soft, but filling the room entirely. Who breaks the silence between altars? The voice carried sadness more than anger, but it pressed on their minds like weight. Chike swallowed hard. We don't mean harm, he said. We're here to understand. The whisper came again, closer, as if circling them unseen. Then face what he faced. The mirror shows truth to those who ask. The mural cracked fully. Behind the wall, glass gleamed in the lantern light. A tall, ancient mirror framed with symbols identical to those on Desmond's staff. The surface was misted, but movement rippled within it like smoke behind water. Nneka's breath trembled. This must be it, the altar of reflection. The mirror's revelation. They approached cautiously. The mirror pulsed, reflecting not their faces but fragments of Desmond's life. The crowded crusades, the weeping villagers, his glowing hands. Then, slowly, his reflection turned toward them. His eyes were hollow, his smile tired. I warned you not to seek me here, the reflection said softly. Chike stepped forward. Desmond? Is that really you? What remains of me? It replied. You open what I sealed. The covenant lives in 2 halves, one to bless, one to bind. I broke the rule of balance. Now the darkness I commanded waits to reclaim its debt. Nneka's knees weakened. But you were chosen. You did good. Desmond's reflection shook his head. No one is chosen who does not first choose. I wanted power more than peace. When I prayed for light, I invited both suns to rise, the holy and the fallen. The mirror flickered. Behind Desmond's reflection appeared another form, taller, shadowed, speaking in the same voice, but lower, distorted. He speaks truth. The covenant was never about serving evil. It was about feeding faith with fear. And they feared him well. The two reflections merged and separated like twin flames in wind. Chike realized he was witnessing the divided soul itself, the same man, split across two realms. The decoding. Nneka held up the journal again, flipping through its final pages. She found an incomplete symbol at the end, two circles intersecting, one filled with light, one with dark. Between them, only reflection can undo reflection. It's like an equation, she murmured. Two mirrors facing each other. If Desmond faced his own shadow, maybe he could have broken it. Chike's eyes widened. Then maybe we still can. If one of us stands before the mirror and refuses its voice. The mirror pulsed brighter, sensing their understanding. Its surface now rippled like water boiling in light. Would you take his place? The whisper asked. The ground rumbled. Candles burst into flame though none had been lit. The air filled with the scent of rain and iron. Chike took a step forward, clutching the rosary until it bit his palm. If it will end what he began, I will. Wait. Nneka shouted. The journal says, if the covenant is broken by force, the mirror demands a new name to bind. It could trap you instead. Chike turned, his face pale but resolute. Maybe that's what Desmond meant by facing truth. Someone has to stop the reflection before it spreads. The awakening. He stood before the mirror. His reflection stared back, alive, breathing differently from him. It smiled faintly, then whispered, Do you believe you are pure, Chike? I'm not, Chike replied. But I believe truth is stronger than power. The reflection's eyes darkened. Then let truth burn you clean. The mirror flared in white light. Nneka screamed as Chike's figure was swallowed by brilliance. For a heartbeat, his reflection lingered behind the glass, staring outward, expression unreadable. Then both vanished. The mirror turned black as night. Nneka fell to her knees. Chike! Her voice echoed through the hollow shrine. Only silence answered, until a single beam of light seeped through the crack, illuminating the journal where it had fallen. On its open page was new handwriting, fresh and trembling. He chose truth. The mirror sleeps again. But truth never dies, it only changes names. The room calmed. Dust settled. The mural dimmed until only the faint outline of the angel remained, eyes closed as if in mourning. Nneka picked up the journal, tears slipping down her face. She whispered, Then your name will not be forgotten. Outside, dawn was breaking. Light spilled through the cracks of the shrine, touching the mirror one last time before it faded to a dull, harmless glass. But somewhere deep within its reflection, two faint shadows still moved, watching, waiting, whispering. Nneka turned to leave, clutching the journal against her chest. As she stepped out into the early morning light, a cold wind brushed her shoulder. She looked back and froze. The mirror, now blank, showed her walking away. But in its reflection, Chike followed close behind, his eyes glowing faintly gold. Morning heat rose over Ikeja like a veil. From the hill above the old church, Nneka watched the sun paint the half-collapsed rooftops gold. In her hands, she still held Desmond's journal, its pages damp from dew and tears. Every word inside hummed with unfinished meaning. Somewhere in those notes hid the path to ending the covenant for good. She had no one left but the echo of Chike's voice and the promise written in his final line. Truth never dies. It only changes names. When she reached the city center, Lagos roadways had already begun their daily roar. Bus horns, street hawkers, gospel chants from radios. It all sounded strangely hollow. She felt as if the whole city was breathing under an invisible shadow. At Desmond's old mission house, now sealed off by police tape and rumor, she found the gate unlocked. Inside, dust had claimed everything. On the desk lay a cracked photo of Desmond, smiling beside children he once healed. Behind it hung a small mirror, half covered with cloth. Nneka hesitated, then uncovered it. Her reflection stared back, pale but steady. No flicker, no ghost, just herself. She exhaled. Then, softly, a whisper from behind her. You kept the book. She turned sharply. A frail man stood by the doorway, gray-haired, eyes sharp beneath the lines of age. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Father Okari," he said. "I was Desmond's mentor before fame found him." They sat among the dust-covered pews. Okari spoke slowly, his voice half prayer, half confession. He was brilliant, the priest said. Too brilliant. He believed every miracle had a source. He searched for it beyond the altar of God, into realms no man should map. He pointed toward the mirror. That was the first conduit. He called it the Gate of Mercy. When it opened, people were healed, but every miracle carried a debt. The covenant demanded balance. Nneka listened, gripping the journal. "We found the mirror beneath the old shrine." Chike faced it. He stopped it. Okari's eyes clouded. "Then it only sleeps. You cannot destroy an altar made from belief. It awakens through those who still seek power." She frowned. Who else would dare? The priest leaned closer. Desmond had followers. Some think his spirit was wronged. They've rebuilt gatherings in secret, chanting his words. They call themselves the Second Dawn. That night Nneka walked home through Ikeja's market streets. Posters of self-styled prophets covered the walls. Men and women promising instant healing, wealth, and visions. One poster caught her eye, a man with bright, confident eyes and a faint resemblance to Desmond. Below, the slogan read, "The dawn returns." Her pulse quickened. Could one of Desmond's disciples have reopened the covenant? She dialed an old contact, journalist Benson, once assigned to investigate Desmond's ministry. "Meet me," she said. "Something from the past is waking." The journalist. Benson arrived with a camera slung over his shoulder and that restless energy reporters never lose. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he joked. "Maybe I have," Nneka replied, handing him the journal. Desmond's words. An occult trying to finish what he started. Benson flipped through, whistled low. "This, if real, it's headline gold. But half the city still worships the man." "I don't want headlines," she said. "I want closure." He studied her. "All right, tell me where to point the lens." Hidden broadcasts. Together they tracked rumors through online sermons and underground prayer meetings. Across the internet, fragments of a new voice were spreading. Distorted audio claiming to be the true Desmond, returned in spirit to complete his mission. When Benson enhanced one clip, the waveform formed a strange pattern, two mirrored peaks. "Look," he said, "it's symmetrical like the symbol in his journal." Nneka finished. They followed the signal to an unfinished tower near Maryland, Ikeja. Construction halted years ago after workers reported shadows in daylight. Now, blue lights pulsed faintly from its top floors. "This is where the new sermons stream from," Benson whispered. They climbed the half-built stairway, every step echoing against concrete. On the final floor, a small studio had been set up. Ring lights, microphones, screens replaying Desmond's old miracles in endless loops. And at the center, a new altar of glass and circuitry. Nneka's breath caught. "They've built a digital mirror." Benson raised his camera. "Proof," he murmured. "The whole world will see." Before he could record, the screens flickered. Every image of Desmond turned its head toward them. Voices overlapped, a chorus of his past sermons blending into one phrase. "Truth changes names, but not the debt." The altar glowed, drawing power from the monitors. A swirling reflection formed, half pixel, half smoke. Nneka stepped forward. "Desmond, if you can hear me, this must end." A ripple answered, deep and cold. "It ends only when belief ends." And they still believe. Benson lowered his camera, awestruck. "Nneka, the mirrors feeding on the views, the worship, the data. It's not spiritual alone, it's digital faith." Thunder rolled across Ikeja. From the windows they saw clouds spiral above the tower, lightning etching a glowing circle, the same twin ring symbol from the journal. People on the streets below pointed upward, phones raised, recording. Okari's warning echoed in Nneka's head. An altar made from belief cannot die. It only migrates. She turned to Benson. "We need to shut it down. If that broadcast spreads, the whole city could remember him wrong." "How?" he asked. "It's running on a power we don't understand." Nneka's eyes fell on Desmond's old cross pendant hanging near the screens. She took it, whispering, "Maybe the same way it began, through a name." She pressed the pendant to the console. Sparks leapt. For a brief instant, the mirror faltered, its reflection flickering between Desmond, Chike, and an unknown child's face. Then everything went dark. Emergency lights hummed back to life. The altar was gone, only dust where it had stood. On the console screen, one final message glowed. The covenant waits in the one who names it last. Benson exhaled shakily. Did we end it? Nneka wasn't sure. The pendant in her hand was warm, as if holding a pulse. Not yet, she whispered. It's looking for a new name. They stared at the city skyline. In a nearby window pane, their reflections overlapped for a moment, two faces merging into one uncertain future. The night had ended in silence. Only the hum of dying generators echoed through the abandoned tower. Nneka sat on the cold floor, Desmond's pendant warm in her palm, as if something unseen still pulsed inside. Benson checked his camera. Every file was corrupted, except one. A faint image glowed on the screen. Desmond, standing in white light, facing his reflection. He was here, Benson whispered. Even the lens caught him. Nneka nodded slowly. Maybe he wanted the world to see truth the way he never could. The pendant brightened for a second, casting soft gold across the concrete. Somewhere beyond the skyline, the first call to prayer echoed over Ikeja. The broadcast begins. By dawn, they reached Benson's small media office in Yaba. Power was unstable. The computers hummed weakly, lights flickering like half-remembered faith. This may be our only chance, Benson said, setting up the transmitter. If we stream through every open channel, radio, social feeds, television, maybe the truth can reach them before the myth grows again. Nneka opened the journal one last time. The final line pulsed faintly under the morning light. Only reflection can undo reflection. She looked up. Then the world must see itself clearly. They connected the pendant to the camera's input port. Instantly, the screens glowed with white static that melted into an image. Desmond's church, Chike's face, the broken mirror, the symbols of both altars overlapping. Benson stepped back. It's responding to your voice, Nneka. Speak. She steadied her breath, eyes fixed on the lens. My name is Nneka Obi. Years ago, we followed a man called Prophet Desmond Nwoko, an angel by day, a voice of miracles. We saw light in him, but we never looked beyond it. Images flickered across the broadcast, Desmond healing the sick, crowds weeping, offerings piled at his feet. What we did not know, Nneka continued, was that behind his mercy lay a shadow, a covenant of mirrors, a power that fed on fear and faith alike. But today, we break that silence. Not with accusation, not with blame, but with truth. For truth heals what power destroys. The pendant's glow spread through the room, brightening every screen. The broadcast signal amplified, jumping from one network to another. Across Lagos, televisions flickered on their own. In marketplaces, people gathered around shop displays. In buses, radios came alive with her calm, unwavering voice. The city awakens. In hospitals, power returned as if on cue. Children once thought hopeless began to stir. A blind old woman opened her eyes. None called it miracle, only renewal. In a quiet apartment in Surulere, Father Okari knelt before a crucifix, tears tracing his cheeks as he whispered, "He has finally found peace." At the same moment, on a dusty street where Desmond once preached, the pavement shimmered faintly. Passers-by paused, sensing warmth in the air like invisible sunlight. The weight that had long pressed on the city's heart began to lift. Back in the studio, the broadcast reached its peak. The screens around them filled with soft light. Two figures appeared, translucent, serene. Desmond and Chike, side by side. Desmond's voice was calm, humbled. Truth does not need altars. It needs hearts willing to bear it. Chike smiled faintly. And light does not erase shadow. It simply shows what it really is. Nneka felt tears blur her vision. Are you free now? She asked softly. Desmond's gaze turned warm. Freedom was always waiting. Thank you for reminding them. The figures began to dissolve into light. As they faded, the mirror symbol on the studio wall cracked and fell away, revealing a pure white surface beneath, untouched, unmarked. The pendant cooled in Nneka's palm. The broadcast signal stilled. Benson slowly removed his headset. It's done, he whispered. The feed's gone viral across every channel, trending already. People are calling it the dawn of truth. Nneka exhaled deeply. For the first time, the air felt clean. Then Desmond's name will live, not as a prophet or a demon, but as a man who once lost his way and was found. They stepped outside into the full blaze of morning. Ikeja was alive again, vendors shouting prices, church bells ringing, laughter rising through the noise. The skyline looked newer somehow, as if repainted by light. Benson raised his camera one last time. One closing frame, he said, filming Nneka as she looked toward the horizon. For every story needs proof it truly ended. Weeks later, Nneka returned to the old shrine. Grass had overtaken the ruins. Birds nested where shadows once lingered. She carried the journal and the pendant, now dull and quiet. At the mural's base, she buried them both. Rest now, she whispered. Your light has returned to its source. When she stood, the morning sun caught a fragment of glass buried nearby. For a heartbeat, she saw her reflection, not frightened, not haunted, just whole. She smiled. And somewhere beyond the veil of things, Desmond and Chike watched in quiet peace as the last flicker of the covenant faded into dawn. And so, the mirror that once divided light from shadow fell silent. The prophet, the believer, and the truth became one, each forgiven in the light they sought. Sometimes the greatest power is not the miracle we command, but the honesty we accept. When truth speaks, even the darkest altar must fall. What would you have done if you found such a mirror? Would you face your own reflection or turn away? Tell us your thoughts below. And remember, every story holds a lesson, if we dare to look deeply enough.